showers along the east coast, but it's a late shower for Canberra as well, maybe with a storm.
Federal Parliament will kick off for the new year this week. If the Prime Minister thought 2020 was tough, it's unlikely 2021 is going to be much easier.
The Prime Minister is set to make their first big press club speech of the year later today.
Despite one of the toughest years in our nation's history, Australia stands strong. We will continue as a people to make our own Australian way through the challenges ahead.
2021 gets underway feeling a lot like other starts to parliamentary years. There's a National Press Club address that the Prime Minister is making. He talks about COVID a little bit, but we're starting to get industrial relations, energy and climate as the issues that are emerging again.
In the speech, he tried to almost do a reset from last year, a year that was dominated by COVID. Suddenly we were returning to topics that we haven't heard about for months, and climate change being the big bugbear for this joint for now more than a decade. Suddenly we went back to that, and there was the use of that one word, preferably, one word that sort of weighed a ton of carbon was in that one word, preferably, showed that the Prime Minister realised that the international and domestic weight was on him committing to net zero by 2050. He had to do it. He's dragging his party there, and the months ahead will show whether it's going to be a success.
Our goal is to reach net zero emissions as soon as possible, and preferably by 2050.
And one man who's facing this similar challenge is the opposition leader. He reshuffles his front bench, but climate and energy are continuing to dog that debate there.
And he does a reshuffle to show strength, to show his party that he's in control and that he can lead to the next election, which he absolutely says publicly he can. But then he's in a bit of a bind because Joel Fitzgibbon is calling the shots, saying that he needs to shake out, the long-time climate change spokesperson in Mark Butler and bring Chris Bowen in. I think on both sides of politics now, wherever they are moving on this matter, it's the international weight, as you said, Probes, that's going to come to bear here, because there's going to be tariffs. The EU and the US are already saying this is on the cards, and so this is for our economy a huge moment.
Yeah, this is a real reckoning, and Scott Morrison has realised he's got to do this. He's trying to make it about a practical response to a global political necessity, and one that people say is a climate necessity. There is no option but for Australia to go with this process, because that is the gravity of the politics of climate change that's now returning to curbing emissions.
Former Federal Sports Minister Bridget McKenzie has faced a public grilling in Canberra over the so-called sports fraud scandal.
Are you incompetent, Senator? You didn't know what your staff were doing, had no idea that they were preparing information that was basically going to be critical to be rorting this scheme of hundreds of billions of dollars.
Sorry, Senator, withdraw that. Withdraw that comment.
That's
doing what with the scheme?
No,
doing what with the scheme? What did you say, Senator?
Yes.
Make it very clear to everyone that's listening today what you just said.
Okay.
Say it outside the protection of parliamentary privilege.
There's a joke that exists within parts of the coalition that says that Bridget McKenzie is the only minister who loses her job in this government. At the heart of that inquiry was this question about what the Prime Minister's office knew about this scandal. And within days, those questions were emerging again.
When and how did the Prime Minister first become aware of the reported sexual assault of Brittany Higgins?
It shook the foundations of this building when Brittany Higgins came forward and raised that allegation publicly that she had been raped inside a ministerial office, just a few hundred metres away from where we are right now, within metres of the Prime Minister's office, and that this was something that occurred years ago, and that there had been a number of people within the cabinet, within the government, who were aware of this, as well as their staff, and that we're at this point now where we're only hearing about it now, and she's only now seeing that this is her way forward.
Shocking revelations about the alleged rape of a young woman in a minister's office.
Claims of rape, roadblocks to a police investigation, and a young woman forced to choose between her career and the pursuit of justice.
I don't think anyone else should go through what I went through.
The Prime Minister says he's distressed by the allegation, which has again put Parliament's workplace in question.
I have listened to Brittany. Jenny and I spoke last night. You have to think about this as a father first. What would you want to happen if it were our girls? Jenny has a way of clarifying things, always has.
And it took the Prime Minister a couple of goes before he landed on where he wanted to respond to that. Why was there that delay?
I think that they were stumped initially as to how they respond. Something so horrific and something that clearly he knew little about, but his office certainly knew something about it. And this is where it became a real hunt for who knew what and when. This was a big question of control, of trust, respectability, but also about the way that women are treated in this building.
And the way press officers work, because we are trying to get transparency, we're trying to understand a situation, it's an ethical minefield, it's a very sensitive matter, and getting stonewalled at times by senior members of the government's media officers, I think, was very difficult when you're trying to understand this story, and I think it erodes public confidence when it's unclear what role different people had and you're getting no response.
There's no doubt that one of the political ploys that is used routinely by every government, regardless of their political stripe, is plausible deniability. It's actually a valuable commodity deployed especially to treat and to protect leaders. The question is whether that one was deployed here. We don't really know, but it seems quite clear to me that there were people inside the Prime Minister's office who did know the depth and seriousness of these allegations and should have acted otherwise.
Drama for the government. Linda Reynolds, the Defence Minister, in hospital.
She has been under immense scrutiny over her initial handling of Brittany Higgins' complaint.
In the middle of it all, Miss Higgins' former boss, Linda Reynolds, is supposed to speak to the National Press Club, but pulls out at the last minute.
Linda Reynolds was, of course, Brittany Higgins' boss back in March 2019 when these, attack allegedly occurred in her very office. Labor has used question time to really scrutinise her role, and it became clear last week that the pressure was really getting to Linda Reynolds. We saw it on her face. She became teary. She was unable to answer questions during question time, but she was still planning to go ahead with this National Press Club address where she would have faced a whole lot more scrutiny and fresh questions over her handling of the Brittany Higgins allegations. First thing Wednesday comes the big news that she has been admitted to hospital, we're told, for a pre-existing condition. Now really questions have emerged over her future in the defence portfolio.
A former Liberal staffer has confirmed she now intends to pursue a police investigation and a formal complaints process into allegation of rape against a colleague.
And Brittany Higgins has now formally made a statement to the police. She's wished Linda Reynolds well, says that, she hopes she makes a quick recovery. And she said that what she really hopes comes out of this whole situation is that there is cultural change here at Parliament and that staffers in particular are given more protection. And I think that that's something that, across the board, people are hoping that this will lead to some positive outcomes so that we don't see this kind of thing happen again.
Clearly, Brittany Higgins felt that at the time that she raised these allegations, her party was putting politics and the party before the person, as opposed to looking at this woman who has just alleged that she has been raped by a colleague inside Parliament House.
My mum lives in your electorate and I don't want her exposed to people who are not going to be vaccinated because of these crazy conspiracy theories they're just spreading.
So please, Tanya, please, stop spreading this misinformation.
That's why the information campaign that we will be rolling out, and you've already seen elements of that already, that is there to answer the very genuine, real, sensible questions, and we encourage as much vaccination as possible. It is the big agenda item for us, obviously, because it provides the pathway to so many of the other things we wish to achieve this year.
The Coalition views the path to victory in a successful vaccination rollout, and that's what the Prime Minister wanted February to be all about. And all the way through the month, one of the thorns in his side was Craig Kelly, who comes from his own side of politics.
Because Craig Kelly used to be necessary to Scott Morrison because he needed that kind of right flank where people who might, be coalescing around One Nation will go to a Craig Kelly type figure and they'll engage with him online and his conspiracy theories. But now, in the context of the pandemic, this is a huge problem that's being amplified online and that people are engaging with that when you're trying to convince everyone that this is safe and this is the right approach. So in the end, Craig Kelly's been flushed out by this process.
Prime Minister, what does it say about your authority over your party room when you lose one of your own members to the crossbench, and this is an individual who owes you?
I set out some very clear standards, and he made some commitments that I expected to be followed through on. He no longer felt that he could meet those commitments. He has said that his actions were slowing the government down.
The thing about every Prime Minister is that everyone else is dispensable. He had his use, but now when he is going to be judged and potentially re-elected on his response during this pandemic, and the vaccine is critical, Craig Kelly got in the way. He's the regular bad penny. He also provided a brilliant opportunity for Tanya Plibersek to show her wares as well. So it served two purposes, this. He got rid of someone who was going to stand in the way of the vaccine, but it also showed Anthony Albanese that there's a woman in the wings who's willing to show that she's got the mettle to take on the Libs.
Craig Kelly's a liability on the crossbench though, because on his wall in his office there's actually a photo of the Queen. He's printed it out off the internet and she's shooting a machine gun, and he says she's his inspiration. He's never going to give up.
We need to ensure that we have a system that is fair and sustainable for the people who need it and the taxpayers who pay for it.
It wasn't just the vaccine though. JobSeeker was overshadowed by Craig Kelly. This is where the government was setting a new permanent rate for the unemployment benefit, going up $50 a fortnight.
Yeah, $25 a week, way less than a lot of people have been calling for. The community sector, the business sector, lots of people, economists have been saying it needs to be much, much higher than that. So it was on the modest side. But 2021 so far has been a year of distraction.
The nation's COVID-19 vaccine rollout has officially kicked off.
The vaccine, produced faster than any the world has seen, administered in Australia for the first time.
We give them a B for vaccine. B for vaccine. Very
Boxes of vaccines were sent around the country yesterday as authorities made careful preparations for what will be one of the biggest health undertakings the nation has ever seen.
Priority is safety, safety, safety.
There seems to be a real sense of optimism here. There has been so much excitement and anticipation leading up to this moment.
If the re-election relied on getting the vaccine right and rolled out, the government now has to contend with how it treats women. And on top of that, it's all become a whole lot harder as new allegations emerge.
Yes, so we know what the political priority is, vaccine rollout, but it's always events that can blow a government off course. That's what Harold Macmillan said, events, dear boy, events. And that's what we've got now. We've got the backdrop of this cultural problem in Parliament, and then this dark cloud that emerged over an entire cabinet, all 16 men of the federal cabinet, and one in particular who was accused of this historical rape from 1988. This is, in terms of a political problem, and it is a political problem, is diabolical, because the Prime Minister wanted to give this minister natural justice and the presumption of innocence, but he also knows that with the complainant dead, he can't possibly be found innocent or guilty. And it's that burden that the Prime Minister had to carry and the Minister himself had to carry.
Everyone in the attorney will make a statement and then be happy to answer all of your questions.
Because what is being alleged did not happen, I must say so publicly.